having trouble not. Thank you. Okay, it is now 5:30 p.m. and I now call to order the Grand Island Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the October 12th, 2023 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and return it in to us so that you may be recognized during the request to address the board part of our meeting. If you have not already completed the form, please see the staff person outside the entrance to this room. Public comment is welcome. We do ask that no signs be brought into the boardroom. Mrs. Dibbert, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McFarland.
Present.
Mr. Holinsky.
Present.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Present.
Mr. Hawley has given prior notice and his absence is excused. Mrs. Wilson. Present. Mrs. Albers.
Present.
Mr. Sykes.
Here.
Mrs. Jurgens.
Present.
Ms. Maudlin has given prior notice that she is running a little behind and will be here shortly.
Thank you, Mrs. Dibbert. Item number 3, the consent agenda. We have items number 3.1 through 3.5. Just a quick note, item 3.2.1, adopt the superintendent evaluation advance from the governance committee. That is the evaluation that we will be using for Mr. Fisher's second evaluation, which the governance committee approved. At this point in time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Ms. Albers.
So we went back and forth a lot on that evaluation, and the evaluation that you're going to see on this the consent agenda, we're just going to clean. It's going to look different. The content will be the same. It'll look a little different when we take it because we'll take it on a computer, so it'll look a little cleaner. Like right now, you have to scroll down each page to try to get to each section. That should all be on one section. So it will look a little bit neater when you end up taking it, but the content of it will be as it is. The other thing I wanted to mention, if any of you went through the staff adjustments, I was really impressed how many employees had continuing education and increased by 9 hours. I know a lot of times at colleges they'll offer classes like in groups of 3s, but it was just super impressive how many people took college classes over this. And I understand that it increases their income, but it also increases their ability to serve our students. So it was very cool.
Thank you, Ms. Albers. Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, we may proceed to a vote. Approval of the agenda. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 4, request to address the board. We have none this evening. Go on to item number 5, information items. Item 5.1, Student Wellness Center. Dr. Summers Stevens, you have the mic.
Do I push? Oh, it's on. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see some of you for a second time today. No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. We had a wellness committee meeting today, so got everyone together for the first time, so that was awesome. So tonight we have with us Michelle Hendrickson, the clinical administrator for the Student Wellness Center at Grand Island Senior High, and some of her colleagues and staff. We wanted an opportunity to be able to share with you the work that they're doing related to our Student Wellness Center at the high school. It's a fantastic opportunity, and we wanted, since there's so many new folks on the board, we wanted them to have a chance to share their program, share what they're doing, share what their, anticipated next needs are, and keep you informed about the ways that they're serving our kids in Grand Island Senior High. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
All right, well, thanks so much for having us here this evening. Really quick, I just want to introduce my team that did not want to get up front and talk, and so that was my job tonight. So we have April Mora, who is our medical assistant, front desk, doer of all the things. She's been with us for 25 years that she's done this job, so a very long time. Next to her, behavioral health therapist Caroline Jones, then Stephanie Mastney, who's our family nurse practitioner, and then our other behavioral health therapist, Stephanie Bauer. So they make up our full-time team at Student Wellness, and as we go through the presentation, we'll hear a little bit more about what they do. Okay, wait, I think I went too far. Okay. Just kind of just wanted to throw in here kind of where we feel our role is. So Student Wellness Center has existed since 1997 and really was created as a response to an identified need in the community. Lots of students not having access to healthcare services, either through parents who are unable to leave work to take them to appointments, just all kinds of different reasons, not wanting to miss school, et cetera. And so it became how do we bring healthcare services to the underserved population. And then initially it was just medical care, but quickly it was realized that the behavioral health care was a very important aspect and thing that was needed. And so that was added second year, sometime in the second school year. And so really we view our job as to bring the healthcare to the student where the student is, to provide them with the services that they need to grow and to be successful adults and successful at school. So how do we pay for this program? So we have funding in a couple different ways. So we are a functioning clinic, so we do bill students who have insurance. We bill their insurance for our services. We also are supported through an annual grant from the CHI Health St. Francis Foundation. So every year they give us the majority of our operating budget. And that allows us to provide services to students who either they don't have insurance, or they maybe have insurance but it's a high deductible plan and so they can't afford the copays or co-insurance. And so any student that uses our services who qualifies for free and reduced lunch automatically qualify for our financial assistance program. And so if they have a balance due, or for years, behavioral health services weren't covered by a lot of insurance. That's changed, but we still have a lot of kids who don't have coverage for that, and so they are able to get that financial assistance using those foundation funds. We also have a very generous lease agreement with Grand Island Public Schools to rent our space at a reduced cost. And so, I forgot that, backing up the, so about 60% of the students that we see through Student Wellness Center have financial assistance as their payer. So most of the kids that we see do not have any form of payment, and so we take care of those students, do a lot of sports physicals, school physicals, things like that. What we do. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a family nurse practitioner who is up at Grand Island Senior High 2.5 days a week. This school year, we actually started also going to Wyandotte for some of our services a couple mornings a week to try and catch some of the students that are English language learners who are based out of Wyandotte for a portion of their day, to be able to get as many kids in as possible. And so just kind of, like I said, school physicals, sports physicals. We do see an occasional student for illness if they're ill. Before we see students, we do have them sign. They have a consent form that their parents must sign and things like that. But then once they are signed up with those consent forms, they can stop by and access our services as needed. And you can see kind of have some volume data in the bottom corner. I was actually surprised when I ran this data. Like, we felt like we were busy, but when I was compiling this, we have seen a huge increase in our number of medical visits. I would say the biggest portion of those are students who are new to school, new to the country, new to the state, and so we're getting them up to date on their vaccinations. We did over 1,200 vaccines through the clinic last year for the students. So behavioral health services. So like I said, we have 2 behavioral health therapists, and so we see kids for a variety of reasons. Typically, they're referred from other school personnel because they are concerns that have been brought to them. Part of the consent form that we have parents sign that we think is a huge asset to being within the school is we have parents consent for us to be able to exchange information with the school personnel. So we can work with social workers, we can work with counselors, and if there's something that we're hearing that we can address the student from multiple angles and help them be successful in overcoming whatever challenges they are facing. Again, same situation with the volumes for the behavioral health services. Over the last 3 years, those services, we have seen an increase. One of the things that we offer, although because of our increase in overall volumes, I think has tapered just a little bit, is risk assessments. So when we have a student who maybe is not a student of our therapist, but there's an issue where they come to school and have thoughts of harming themselves, harming others, etc., we will see them and evaluate them free of charge and help get them connected to services so they're not having to go out somewhere else to get seen to potentially be admitted or whatever. So we're right there. We will stop our day as much as we can to help those students and get them directed immediately, which we have seen quite a few. Like I said, we got a little bit busier, so I think that's impacted some of our ability to always get those kids in, but we do try our best to help support the school personnel who are working with those students. We do have a nurse practitioner for psychiatry who does some visits in our clinic. So she comes once a month and then does telemedicine visits with students to help them if they are needing medications to address their behavioral health concerns. And so doesn't see a ton of students, but it does help us be able to offer that full spectrum of behavioral health care for students who need it. So this is really just, again, back to my comment about on-site care matters. It's been very, we see a lot of collaboration with the team at Grand Island Senior High. We do see quite a few students, even from the middle schools, that come up and access our services for mostly medical care, but some behavioral health as well. And so just being able to be in the school, have that relationship, be accessible to the students, especially like behavioral health students or patients who have a crisis in the middle of the day, having their counselor right there and able to be accessed. We just have a level of contact with our clients that you don't get in a normal setting. And so we feel like that is something that is just very helpful. So anyway, I kept it really short this year. So happy if you have any questions or comments. Thanks for letting me come.
Ms. Salvers?
Thank you for coming tonight. I always enjoy this presentation. I'm always just shocked and amazed at how many kids you're able to help. So it seems like your services are increasing the number of kids that you're seeing, but you're not adding staff at this point?
Yeah, so we're kind of stuck. We're a little landlocked in the space that we have next to the nurse's office at the West office. Each of the therapists have their office that they see their students in, and our medical provider sees students in her office as well. So there's nowhere really else to add much more than what we have. We easily could fill another behavioral health provider very, very quickly. We just don't have the space to be able to do that. So.
If you wanted to, would CHI cover that if you wanted to add?
So we've talked about it, so one of the changes that we're going to have over the next year is we're becoming a little more closely aligned with our behavioral health services across the state through CHI Health, and with that, I think will bring us a lot of resources and some additional support as that would be available. And I think that as we've talked about over the years, there's been support. We don't have anywhere to put anybody.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Right.
It's unfortunate because it is such a need.
Yeah,
So,
no, absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ms. Jurgens?
To piggyback off of what Mrs. Albers just asked you, I had a question about your facilities because I have been told that you are in need of more space, and I don't think that's any secret. Your numbers speak for themselves. Your increase speaks for itself. So in a perfect world, how much space do you have?
April, how much space would you have in a perfect world? I mean, I'd love to have us to a place where we could have 2 medical exam rooms and run Stephanie full-time running through those. It's very challenging when you have a student who comes in and they need, you've all been to a doctor's office, right? Like you go into the room, you have the nurse, they sit there and they do all the things with you, and then the provider comes in, and then they move on to the next patient while the nurse goes back in and gives you shots, gives you whatever. We can't do that. We have to do it all in one room, so we are very slow at how quickly we can get through patients. And so I think if we had that second room, we'd really be able to increase and just expand our reach, because right now we're really seeing the students who are directly referred to us. We are not actively going after any additional students. Like if they have a primary care provider, go to them. Like we will stay for the students who don't have that option. And so being able to expand that. I mean, for behavioral health, I would hate to say that I don't even think one more would be sufficient for the demand. I mean, we are usually on a waiting list for services end of September, beginning of October. I would guess we've already started one for the year for behavioral health services. And so, I mean, we could fill them if we had 2 more. I mean, so really we're talking, we'd need 8 rooms to be able to function efficiently and get students through.
And the good point that was made to me also is that the annex would not be sufficient. You need to be on campus at senior high to be effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's one of the things that, again, it makes it so convenient for students and is such a benefit for students to just be right there. So when we have, a member of the school team that, they have a concern about a kiddo that they know we see, they can just swing by on their way down. I mean, we have all kinds of pop-ins all day long from students, from faculty, from other staff just coming in to say, hey, I've got this kid, or et cetera. The other benefit is for like medical care, a lot of the students we see maybe are not always present at school. And so when they are there, we are right there, so we can call them down and say, hey, you need to get your second set of shots. Hey, we need to get this done, and we can capture them where they are instead of them having to come and seek services. So.
Such a good point. I'm sorry, I do have one other question.
Keep going. I got you.
Regarding communication, specifically with your low-income students. So obviously primarily referral, but I do think about, so I was a child that lived in poverty, and I never heard about anything like this. I really doubt this existed, to be honest. But I don't even know how I would have been told that. So I sort of just put myself in those shoes again and thought, how do you tell a student, hey, we've got this resource over here? So can you talk to me a little bit about the communication?
Yeah, so the students come to us in a lot of different ways. So back in the days before everything was digital, we used to send home like our enrollment forms and everything as part of the registration packet. Well, when that all moved online, that really isn't an option anymore, just because the registration process changed. So I would say a lot of our students, a lot come through the Welcome Center. we get multiple calls a day from the Welcome Center with students that they need to send to us for services. And that typically gets them in the door for medical services for sure. The behavioral health services, they kind of just, we used to get a lot through the probation, diversion, school counselors, yeah. I mean, we used to get a lot through the social workers, but I think some of that's. Yeah. Yeah, so when they come in for their medical appointments, they're revealing things that about themselves that we're like, ooh, you probably really need to see somebody. And so trying to help connect that services. So we try and work collaboratively to just kind of refer these kids back and forth.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Garcia Mendez?
Thank you. Thank you, by the way, for everything that you do. Have a couple questions. Do you guys like refer out some of the students? Like, if you can't accept them, for instance, like for the behavioral health, do you have any other kind of like places that you refer them to, or some of the online kind of telehealth?
So sometimes, so if we have a waiting list, I think a lot of times the kids who are being sent to us, whoever they're working with, whether it's the counselor or something, if they've had other options available, like they have insurance that's going to cover their services, or they have transportation, because that tends to be a big reason that they seek services with us, is because they don't have anybody to take them to their appointments. They will try and I feel like our referral sources protect us from sending us students who have options, so they can save us for the kids who have no other options. And so so they are told when they call us and we're like, we have to put you on the waiting list, they know, like, we'll try and find other options. I don't know how much we will send out, typically not until, like, if they're graduating, we'll try and connect them to somebody else, but I don't know how much we actually refer them out versus just being very clear with whoever's referring them that we don't really have the capacity to accept. We'll get them in as soon as we can, and we'll, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something urgent, yeah, we're not gonna just let them sit there if it's urgent, but,
Yeah. No, for sure.
yeah.
My other question is kind of like complex in terms of like communication, especially with some of the newcomer communities. How does that go? And have people in the district thought about having like another office, maybe at CPI, where the Welcome Center is at? And I know there's a certain limit to where you can move, but I can see how that need can be met. If you just kind of, because I know they intake a lot of families there, and I know they have a pretty good collaboration with the health department too. But yeah, if you could speak to that complex question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a complex question.
Both?
Both.
Yeah.
Okay, just leave me hanging up here.
My question.
So I don't, we talked a few years ago when we were first kind of talking to school administration about our space issues, and we had talked about some alternative locations. So over the years, for a while, like, we did satellite clinic to Walnut, and we did do some of that, and obviously we're trying it this year with Wyandotte. But I think what ended up happening, especially with Walnut, is we didn't have the resources. So for us to continue going there was enough need at Gish that we couldn't be multiple places. I think the challenge that we get into with alternate sites is probably more of an hour challenge, and staffing, equipment, and all that stuff to fully set up another location. And identifying where that would make the most sense. And so that's not, CPI is not a location that I think we've talked about. So that is certainly something that we probably could consider. I think, the initial mission really, when it was developed, was focused on Gish, but I think that there's, opportunity that depending on, tried to get the services because they were so needed at Gish, and getting that full before trying to split off our services, I think, is probably where we would end up. But It's a great thought that I have not considered.
No, you're good. Thank you, though.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes. Oh, thank you. And just as a real quick follow-up, just to make sure that I have answered some of the questions. So we're really grateful for their support and services at our high school. We also partner with Heartland Health, who also at our Title I schools, including Walnut, including soon to be Bar and many of our elementary schools, that they are also providing mental health supports as well as physicals and supporting immunizations. So we have a lot of people. I'm a big fan of wraparound things and providing things in school. So not only the great support they're providing, we have a lot of other providers coming into school, but we do have some of the medical and dental coming into our elementaries, many of our elementaries, and some of our middles. So I wanted to make sure you had that. Okay, but thanks for letting them come tonight and share their story.
Thank you very much. Okay, item number 5.2, Miss Angela Amick will present a legislative review. Angela, you may have the microphone.
Hello all, I'm Angela. It's nice to be here finally. It's so nice to be without a mask and be able to be here in person and not have to Zoom. I was just talking to Mr. Fisher about, so I'm very honored to be here and for this opportunity to address the board and to work with you side by side as we strive to serve our students of Grand Island Public Schools and the community of Grand Island as a whole. When we first started this journey in 2005 together, we knew we had a unique story to tell for Grand Island, and one that was worthy of the state's commitment of support, resources, and recognition of our student population. You here in Grand Island have so much to be proud of. I don't know if I can stress that enough, how Grand Island is viewed as such a leader in the state. During this time that I've been working with you, I was just mentioning that part of one thing that I'm really proud of and can point to is that we were the first school district to create a health clinic. We're recognized for that statewide. We're recognized for being the first to provide career pathways for students. We've led on the issue of poverty and English language learners, getting that recognized in the state aid formula. We have grown state aid to this school district by over $35 million in that time because of the pursuit of that poverty piece and the English language pieces. We've aided in creating a trust fund, finally. Virgil and I have been working on that forever. And while it's flawed in some ways, it's there. It's something we can point to and build on and continue to work on. So I'm very pleased with that. And we've developed relationships in all levels of state government, not just at the legislative branch, but throughout state government. Now, having said that, the last few years have been difficult, to be sure, for public schools in general. We've faced opposition and attacks at every turn. The Education Committee of the legislature has changed chairs 3 times in 4 years, which is kind of unheard of in my tenure there. New members have been on the committee that have no interest or understanding of public education. They have referenced bills outside of the Education Committee to other committees that have absolutely zero jurisdiction over those subject matters that we approach in public schools. So it's been difficult for sure. People ask me, what can we expect going forward next year? We can expect the same committee, the same Education Committee to return, same chair, same committee. It will be a short session. It will not be a budget session. We will have a pretty frustrated Revenue Committee chairman who sits on the Education Committee because the Secretary of State, as you know, if you've read a newspaper or listened to a radio or anything, has said that the signatures were certified to place on the ballot an opportunity for the citizenry to weigh in and repeal LB 753. We will see a lot more rhetoric and that is kind of just a lot of spin, if you ask me, lots of rhetoric that it does nothing except to create a diversion from keeping people to do what they were sent to Lincoln to do. And that is, I think, help people. So, so that is true. Those things will continue. Those things will happen next year. But one thing I want to say is to be sure that despite the spin tactics that are being played on LB 753, it has nothing to do with the family's ability to choose where they send their kid to school or how they pay for that child to go to that school. It is only a tax credit. That is what it is. It is a tax credit for people to invest, and it's typically there for people who have a lot of money to invest. Those are millionaires and billionaires, not kids that need scholarships to go to school. So be clear on that. Don't be swayed by that. Let's see. After all of this, I want you to know, though, that I remain optimistic. Some days I've had my days, as some of you on the legislative committee know, where it was hard to keep my head up. But I am optimistic. I will continue to show up every single day, and I will be ready to fight for our kids and our student population for sure. I won't be bullied. I won't walk away from them. I will remain strong and be there to look after their well-being. So I'm not going to talk for a long time. I'm going to say in closing again that I want to thank you for this great courtesy to be here, first of all, and also just the courtesy to work with you side by side as we address the needs of our student population in the community of Grand Island. So thank you so much. You have a lot to be proud of, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So with that, I'll answer your questions if you have any, unless you want to go play in the rain. There's a lot of that to do.
Mr. Fisher.
So, Angela, just I guess maybe so you can walk out with some good news in your hip pocket. But yesterday was at the ESU superintendent's meeting, and a couple of the ESU 10 superintendents are on the governor's. I'm not sure what
Round table.
Yeah.
That's what he's calling them.
Anyhow, they were really, I guess, very optimistic about the governor's commitment to really trying to get rid of some of the mandates that we have to deal with in operating our schools. So they felt like he really, truly understands that over the course of the years that we've had more and more and more mandates piled on schools that probably should have been local choices as to whether we provided, those services or those trainings or whatever it is. So they were pretty optimistic about maybe, having the governor play a lead role in maybe getting some things rolled off the table.
That's excellent. You should raise your hand and call him and ask to be on that committee.
Well, the people that are there, I think, are similar thought process.
Great, excellent. That is good news. I mean, I feel like we beat our heads against the wall a lot with members that say they want to go to Lincoln and reduce your property taxes, and then they pass mandates down to schools and say you got to do this and that and the other thing, and by the way, you can't touch your levy. Well, wait, what? I mean, yeah. So, just be vigilant on that front. It's important that it's easy for talking, for sound bites, right? It's super easy for sound bites to sound good, and they all look good on a flyer or whatever, but it's important that they put their money where their mouth is, and that's with those kids. And that's really all I care about at the end of the day, that they're making sure those kids come to school. And turns out, Verge used to tell people, I remember one time he told a former member of the legislature, we find when kids come to school they can learn. So if they can come to school and they've had breakfast and they have shoes to wear, you know, turns out we find that they can learn when they get there. But we got to get them there sometimes, and sometimes people just don't realize the challenges that our student population really has in real life. I mean, we're all pretty blessed, you know, to be sitting here today and standing here in front of each other, and we just got to remember the main purpose and the main goal. Some little six-year-old little kid can't speak for themselves very, very well. So with that, I'm happy to hear that, Mr. Fisher.
Ms. Albers.
Thanks for being here, Angela. I think now more than ever, it's just super important that our district has a voice up in Lincoln, and we can never hope that someone else will fight our battle for us up there. We always have to be present fighting the battle for Grand Island Public Schools in Lincoln. You never want to think that OPS or LPS or KPS, they're going to fight our battle for us. We have to fight our own battle up there. So the more of a presence that we have in Lincoln and more support we get from within the district itself, and just the more time we spend on these issues, being present, being in front of legislators, being in the chair, testifying, that's the way that we can make real change.
I couldn't agree more. I've got nothing to add to that. Oh, I thought I saw a hand. I'm sorry. It's not my job to call on people, is it?
All right. Well, thank you, Angela.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate all your help.
All right, thank you.
Okay, items 5.3 under policy, Mr. Matt Fisher.
Okay. Well, the good thing is, I don't think any of these should take us too terrible long. They're all pretty cut and dried. All right. These things getting them big enough you can read them. So, okay, last month we had on our first reading a number of policies that applied to the board and how the board operates. I evidently missed one of them because I had one left over. Policy 2481 deals with news media services at board meetings. Pretty short, straightforward policy. The one proposal that coming out of the policy committee is simply to strike that last paragraph there. A table for media provided with extra working copies of the agenda and agenda materials shall be located near the board's table to enable the reporters to follow the discussion without difficulty. Not that we're not going to do those things, but again, as I think about policy, I think you really want to not put things out there that may or may not happen. And we, of course, have a table, but we've gone away from copies because we have everything on the screen. And so again, I think it's just better policy to not put things in place that says you're going to do something that usually you're going to do, but why make it a policy? It's more of a practice than a policy. And so in some instances, we may be putting several tables out because we know we have multiple media people here. We're going to always accommodate the media. It's not about not accommodating the media. It's really about, it probably isn't something that should be in policy. So So that is the proposal with that one, is just simply to strike that. Any questions about that policy? All right, on we go. Now we get to move to some exciting stuff, because now we're going to talk about support services. And the first support service we get to talk about is facilities for milk expression. Again, this is one of those policies that hasn't been around forever, because we didn't used to have policies along these lines, but we do now. And I think as we went through this policy with the policy committee the other day, a couple of the things came to light. Number one was, when we're putting this policy in place, we're not necessarily just talking about providing this for employees. Really, if we have the facility available, it would be available for, employees, people that were visiting the building. In some cases, it could be students. So again, we just eliminated some language that made it appear that this policy was in place simply for employees, and that actually the policy would apply to anyone that was in our facilities. And questions on that? Okay. Then we will move on to safety programs. And this is one of those that basically is just a statement about making sure that we have safe programs in place. Didn't see that there was really anything that we needed to change at this one, so this would simply be a review. Questions here? All right, first aid. This is a policy that actually my recommendation is going to be, and this is what I recommended to the policy committee, and I think they were in agreement with this, that we simply eliminate. It's a statement about first aid that is just really practical first aid information. And again, I think when you put it in policy, you create an expectation that may or may not happen. And by putting it in policy, you've said it will happen. And if it doesn't happen, I think you've created a liability for yourself that really didn't need to be there. I reviewed a number of other schools and looked at their policies in this area, and most of them don't have anything. I think at one time it was fairly common practice to have this, but I think most districts have eliminated this. So again, not to say that we're not going to provide first aid. It's just that you've created a liability if you put it in your policy and say this is how it's going to work, and it doesn't end up working that way. Questions there? So again, the recommendation is just simply going to be to delete that policy.
Mr. Fisher, hold on one second. Ms. Malton does have a
Yes.
question.
My question is, as I was reading this, when it says, in the event of an injury to a student, the family or guardian shall be notified as soon as possible. Is this still something that's gonna happen regardless, that they'll be notified?
Yeah, I think that's just a common expectation that I'm relatively certain, I can't swear to it, but I'm gonna guess that there are other places in policy where there'll be, mention about when parents are gonna be notified. It's probably also in the handbooks. But again, I think it's just a generally accepted practice. I mean, we would not be okay with something happening to a student and the parents not being notified about it. And so again, I just don't think it needs to be in policy. Okay, moving on to student conduct on buses. And here, there were just a couple of phrase changes that we talked about here. If you look at that red statement there and put that together with the rest, Grand Island Public Schools expect students to conduct themselves, on the bus in a manner consistent with established standards of classroom behavior and in accordance, and that's where it stopped before, so Well, what is accepted classroom behavior? Well, we know that's kind of what we're going to expect in a classroom, so that makes some sense, but it really isn't well defined because different classrooms for different age level students are going to have different expectations. So I think adding the statement and in accordance with guidelines established in handbooks and policy. So then again, I think that brings back in that, we do have a student discipline policy. And so that this in effect says that student discipline policy would be in effect, and those would be expectations that would exist when students are on buses. And then that last sentence there, rules of conduct will be provided to students riding the bus. Well, to me, that creates an expectation that you're going to be handing out a set of rules of conduct, which, because we're contracting our buses, we don't know that that's necessarily happening. Again, I think if we feel like the right practice to have in place is to be handing out that set of rules, I think that's what we should be doing, and that's what we will do. But to put it in a policy and then somewhere down the road find out that didn't happen, and someone challenges you and says your policy says that this will happen, and now we didn't follow the rules, and because we weren't given the rules, I think you're just in a lot better place to not have created something that could happen but might also not happen in your policy. Again, I think you're back to a practice rather than a policy. Questions on that? Eric?
Yeah, I had one on handbooks, as in like plural. Do you see any issue in that? Or should it specify established in current handbook or student handbook? I don't know if you think that should be
I think
changed.
handbooks, the reason there was because we do have, I think, a different handbook for different grade levels. No. Well, again, I think if it says that established in handbooks and policy, then I think you've covered it. That whatever the handbook expectations are. And I guess potentially the other thing that would also include then is your employee handbook is, so there are expectations created for employees in their handbook that would also apply to the bus, that we might want to have that. So again, I think handbooks as the plural is probably okay there.
So is that something they still agree to, with handbooks at the beginning of the year? Do you sign that I agree? I know some schools where you have to sign the handbook at the beginning of the year, you will follow.
Right.
Is that something that is done or not?
I don't know.
It's part of student
Yes?
registration.
Part of the
Okay.
online registration.
I couldn't exactly remember. So basically, they are agreeing to it anyways, so it
Yeah,
doesn't need.
they've agreed to,
Yep.
and again, that's why I think it's good to have that statement in there about the handbooks and policy, because they are agreeing to that. Now, there is also, and this, if there aren't any further questions on this, we'll jump to the next one, which is actually kind of an addendum to that policy, because this is the contract that students and their parents are expected to sign if they are using transportation. And again, this is one of those, it's a policy, it's probably, it probably falls, it ties to that policy. You could probably not necessarily have it in policy and have it as more of a practice, but I think it's okay in policy. And basically, you can see as you read the language in this, that this was put in place when they first started offering transportation in town. And so basically, part of what in that first paragraph is eliminating some of that language so that it doesn't look like this just started this year. It's been around since they've been offering transportation in town. just hasn't been reviewed since then. And so, again, there's the statement there in the third paragraph at the end about a transportation discipline report. Well, we do have transportation discipline reports, but I wouldn't say they always get used. I think sometimes, a discipline issue happens and that transportation discipline report may not be the first thing that is at hand, and it may be just a matter of delivering the student to the principal and telling the principal, what's happened. So again, I think it's okay to think about that as being the practice, but probably not roping yourself into it with it being in the policy, so that someone later on could challenge you and said, well, you were supposed to do this transportation discipline report and that didn't get done. So, that's my defense for whatever happened or whatever. Again, it kind of creates a loophole, and I don't think it needs to be in policy. I think you're probably better off not having it there. Now, the policy committee spent some time debating this, so this will be part of your homework as you go through this next month, is to think about this next part there. It spells out for the elementary that a first violation would simply be a warning by the driver. A second violation of the expectations would be a loss of privilege to ride the bus for 1 week. Then originally it said the third violation would be a loss of privilege to ride the bus for 2 weeks, and the fourth violation would be a loss of privilege to ride the bus for the remainder of the school year. We had debate back and forth about whether that should be a 4 violation before you lost that privilege to ride the bus, or if we should eliminate the third violation and make that when the loss of privilege for the remainder of the year would happen. So that's, I think ultimately after some back and forth, and I wouldn't say there was 100%, agreement. I think everyone was okay with the idea of eliminating that third violation and going straight to the fourth violation being the loss of privilege for the rest of the year. So, thoughts on that? Input anyone wants to give at this point in time? Again, it's new to you if you haven't read ahead, but probably something that we might want some input on at some point in time.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you. Yeah, that was one thing that I saw that I had a question on. Is there data that we have that measures students who have had a loss in usage of the bus, where they had like a first violation, second, third, or fourth?
I
And is that
would
something
guess
that we can see?
that there is.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is her area.
Perfect.
That's probably Dr. Dexter's area of expertise.
Yeah,
'cause she's been doing it.
she may have more to add, but the one thing that I would share is the bus as a contracted service still communicates directly with the building principal of the child, in which they're working with discipline, and so they work with the building principal to actually administer, if you will, the discipline. So it does get recorded in Synergy, just like our other discipline situations. And so one of the things I might make sure that Jamie can help us ensure, and it may already exist, is just running just strictly from the bus, running that particular place as the piece. The other part I did want to add related to any of the rules, for example, and some of these pieces that we're going to start doing some training with Holidays drivers and any support staff that they bring on related to areas of suicide ideation, because sometimes that's happening, but also behavior intervention strategies to de-escalate. And then also I stay in really close contact with Brock Brown related to warnings that happen, any complaints that come in related to, we've had, my child came home and said, I got threatened, I'm not going to get to ride the bus. And then he can ensure that, you know, a person didn't get 6 warnings, that they got their warning, and then the next consequence occurred. So those are some of the pieces that speak to some of the items up in here, and trying to continue to tighten up how we do the rules, make sure that they're signed, and making sure that schools have them. I think it's not consistent necessarily how they collect those, so that'll be a piece that we can put into some just procedures that we use.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to see, because I feel like maybe that can gauge decision making in this. If there's a huge discrepancy in what are the amounts after the third offense, third violation, and fourth, and maybe fifth, kind of seeing what that looks like. Because I would hate to eliminate transportation for a student. And their behavior is their behavior, right? But there's a lot of reasons for that behavior. And I just wouldn't want to just eliminate that mode of transportation, because our city has awful public transportation, almost non-existent. But the public schools do a phenomenal job filling in that gap. So yeah, I would be interested to kind of see some of that. And maybe people in the policy committee, maybe that could be useful for them in making that decision.
Well, I'll
But yeah.
definitely look at what kind of data we can pull together for everybody before we bring it back. Because I think it is, as you said, it is important. The other piece that may be interesting is that, you know, we allow people to get on the bus at a site to go to another location, right? It only goes to certain places, but on a given day, it could be very different people on the bus. And so that's one of the things that, you know, it will be difficult to know if that student rides the bus every day, or they had 3 incidents, you know, and it was the only 3 times they ever rode the bus. We won't know that either. So those are some things we're working through of how to better track who's riding buses into the future as well. Okay. Yep.
Ms. Juergens?
Thank you for all that information. Dr. Stevens, I hope you're not running away too far. You might have to help with this. I'm sorry. I know. I'm so sorry. I wanted to make sure you got your steps in. So Mr. Garcia Mendez touched on it. It's no secret. We have almost no public transportation in this town. It's terrible. So I'm thinking about, okay, so the student is clearly violating the rules and they can't be riding with GIPS anymore. Is there any sort of follow-up plan for parents who, you know, they do not have the means to get their child to school? Do we have something in place already for those circumstances?
Well, at this point, I haven't had that happen
Okay.
since I've been here. But I know that's a constant concern, because we also want students to be able to, you know, to learn.
Right.
And so I would maybe defer if Dr. Dexter had any previous experience with what was done, just because I don't know how we have done it before, because I haven't had anyone hit that threshold of not being, I haven't had anyone yet that I know of specifically that's a week off the bus. It very well could be, and they just, the parent probably took them, or they found a ride. I didn't get any message.
We have very few that get kicked off the bus, and usually that first time for the week is enough.
Okay.
And I've just always been very firm with the parent that this is a privilege. We are not required to provide this. You know, get your child to behave on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
So, but just very few get kicked off.
Which is good.
But like Dr. Stevens said, I would get calls, well, he's been doing this 6 times. Like, well, this is the first time I've heard about it. So really cracking down on, and bus drivers, they're kind people, and they just don't want to cause anybody trouble. But when they've had it, and then they expect something to all of a sudden happen. So we, like Dr. Stevens said, we've been working with Holiday on that.
Great. Thank you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, probably the majority of the ones that we've ever had kicked off, middle school.
Yes.
And again, when you look at the policy, 6 through 12 is basically a warning, and then you're done.
And that's, Holiday did put cameras on middle school buses, which
So, and we're not proposing to change anything in that area, so.
Mr. Helinski?
I know we talked about this a little bit in the meeting. You know, first, second, third, fourth, I mean, how many times is is too many. I'm an advocate of 3 strikes you're out. But it says that the lawful privilege of riding the bus for the week. Now, we have things that are like spring break or vacations coming up for holidays and things like that. Is that gonna carry over, or is that giving the kid free rein? Hey, I know I can act up on the bus because we don't have school next week.
And maybe we do need to, I mean, that would probably be something we could change, is just change it to 5 school days.
This is do a school week instead of just a week in general.
I think 5 days would be appropriate, and I guess you would have a time that it is one more day than the week, you know, if you had a shortened week, but it would be very clear then.
Yeah, I think that's probably something
Just a
we could
thought.
definitely clarify. Anything else on that one? All right. School transportation safety, and again, this one, I don't think there were any proposed changes to this. This one just basically says that we're gonna have safe vehicles. This is basically a commitment to making sure that our vehicles are safe. Then the next one actually is a fairly lengthy one that we are required to have, which is the Safe Schools Transportation Plan. And as I said, it's fairly lengthy, and I think there was maybe one thing in here, yeah. Down in this one statement where it said, oftentimes weather conditions deteriorate. In my 30-some years in the school business, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 times we've ever let kids out early. It's, the only time you would do that is if you thought they might get caught at school. And that has happened. There are schools where that has happened, but I don't think it's an oftentimes thing. Yeah, and so basically just weather conditions may deteriorate, and then you'll end up canceling school and then running, buses accordingly is, I think, more appropriate in terms of the wording there. And I believe that was the only change that there was in this one. Yep. Questions on that one? Lots of different, pieces of information in there, and it's all, this one is pretty spelled out as far as what you're supposed to have in your safe pupil transportation plan. So there's not a lot of leeway in what you would change there. Okay, transportation for extracurricular activities. Not anything too significant changing here. Again, as we work with the committee, just some things that we felt like maybe needed to be changed a little bit. That second paragraph, students participating in extracurricular activities, well, there was a statement, other than those held at the school district facilities may be transported. Well, there's times that we transport students to activities that are held on school facilities. We may bus somebody across town from one of our middle schools to another one. So again, it's just extracurricular events, may be transported. And then you get down there, school students attending extracurricular events other than those held at the school district facilities may be transported. Again, that was just a repeat of the sentence that was before, so there wasn't a reason to have that in there twice. But school district provided transportation should be considered an extension of school property, and students should conduct themselves in accordance with all guidelines established in handbooks and policy. Again, I think it's just to spell out what the expectation is and tie it back to the handbooks and the policy that we would expect anywhere else for students. And then this was one that we had to wrestle with a little bit as far as that last paragraph. The statement there, a student's parent may personally appear and request to transport the student home from a school-sponsored event in which the student traveled to the event on a school district transportation vehicle. Above that, it basically says that there would be a process where parents could release their student to ride prior to the event. the statement at the end that is struck right now is a statement saying that after the event, they could appear personally and ask that their child ride home with them or go somewhere else with them. So we had quite a bit of back and forth on this one, because we do recognize that there are times that happens now, and it does create some potential problems for parent and activity sponsor if there is a real legitimate reason. Ultimately, I think the committee decided that we probably, needed to really think hard about that piece, because many times activity sponsors may not know who the parents are, and they certainly may not know who the custodial parent is. And that's ultimately where we came back to maybe that we really should put the emphasis and the expectation on that being taken care of with the school people who would know that ahead of time. So that's where we're at with that one. Again, this is a first read, so it could change by next month, but right now we're thinking that striking that, and again, as we go into probably our winter sports season, that would need to really be a point of emphasis. That, and I think that was other part of the discussion is that's kind of where some schools are operating now, and some of the schools are operating with the idea that it's okay for parents to sign students off. So, thoughts, questions, anything you want to share on that one?
No.
Okay.
All right. Before we move on to action item number 6, I did miss something on under the consent agenda on item number 3.3. I did not give an individual an opportunity to abstain from a vote on a claim check. So, Ms. Albers, on check number 90685, I did not give you an opportunity to abstain on that. Would you like to abstain?
I would like to abstain from check number 90685, and voting yes on all other items.
Okay, thank you. We did not need to vote on the rest of it. Thank you. Apologize for my miss there. Okay, now we're going to go on to item number 6.1, or action items, board member oath of office. Mr. Fisher.
Okay, again, these would be second reading on these policies, so would be looking to have the board go ahead and act on these and make changes. So the first one on board member oath of office, the only thing that we were proposing a change there was to change that to the official name of the district, the Hall County School District number 2, as opposed to School District of Grand Island.
Any questions for Mr. Fisher? At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve item number 2312, board member oath of office as presented.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 2312 board member oath of office as presented.
Second.
Second by Ms. Malden. Discussion? Seeing none, we proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, the next policy, on board member development opportunities, there were no changes presented for that one, so it would just simply be reviewed.
Questions? I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 2320 board member development opportunities as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. You may proceed to a vote. No discussion, I assume. Motion passes.
Okay. Next item is look at policy 2410, school board meetings. And again, there were no proposed changes to this policy, so it would simply be reviewed.
Entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 2410 school board meetings as presented.
You have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Garcia Mendez. Discussion? Seeing none, and proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay. Policy 2412, executive or closed sessions. Again, no proposed changes to this policy.
I would entertain a motion then to approve item number 2412.
Make a motion to approve 2412 executive closed sessions as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, you may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Again, policy 2413 on work sessions and retreats has no, I spoke too soon. There is a proposed change here.
You were just hoping.
Yeah, it's a two-letter change. In that second policy, or the second paragraph, first sentence, topics for discussion and study will be announced publicly, and work instead of works sessions. So there are two letters that are proposed to be changed in this one.
I would entertain a motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 2413 work session as retreats as presented.
Second by Ms. Malden. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, now 2421, agenda preparation and dissemination does not have any changes. So it does? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does. That one letter change there.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve 2421 agenda preparation and dissemination as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? None. Proceed to vote. Motion passes.
All right, I made this one really big, so 2430, quorum does not have any changes.
I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 2430 quorum as presented.
Second by Ms. Malden. Discussion? Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, the other item that is in this policy review takes us back a couple months. We approved a revised policy for option enrollments. But to go along with that policy, in October, we're required by October 15th, and it designates that date in here, we are required to pass a resolution that sets any numbers that would close programs for the following year are required to be set at that by that October 15th date. So this resolution is something that we've had. So there's just a few word changes within that were required by changes in the legislature. The first of that being that indicating that by October 15th for the following school year date. And then again, down in that second whereas, at the end of that, for the following school year. So those are a couple of little minor language changes. The real change comes down in Appendix 1. In previous years, what the board would approve in this resolution was basically numbers that would say we had this capacity available in our special ed programs in each of the different buildings. And the legislature change really said that each special ed student would be looked at on a case-by-case basis as far as accepting them for option enrollment. So we had to look at each student that has an IEP and make a determination whether we have the ability to serve that student or not. So, and that's specified here at the end of this. So, rather than having that, what we could look at is our numbers for kindergarten, first, so on, through each of the grades, and we could set what we projected our enrollment to be and what our capacity was. Well, that's pretty tough to judge right now, so I guess my recommendation is that we don't set any numbers there. We can make determinations. If we start getting full, we can, we can decide, well, this building is full, and now if you want to opt, you're going to end up in this building, or, so I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think the resolution, what we really want to concentrate on with this resolution are those specialized programs that we have that are listed at the bottom of this. The Success Academy, both at the high school and the middle school, ombudsman, our newcomers, basically at all three levels. Those programs, we are at or above capacity right now, and we probably are going to remain there. And so probably our ability to take option enrollment students. We still have to take any student that moves into our district. This is simply for option enrollment students that we would say that those programs are currently full, is what the resolution the board would be looking at passing at this point in time would be. Questions on that?
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve item 7511.
Make a motion to approve 7511 option enrollment resolution as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Okay. Item number 6.9, removing the interim term from Matt Fisher's current designation with the district. Discussion between Mr. Fisher and the Board of Education has brought about a decision not to conduct a superintendent search at this time. Once the board completes a second evaluation, a contract extension will be considered. I'm going to apologize to my fellow board members and everyone else. I missed this at the last meeting. We did not follow the proper procedure, so now at this point in time we will do the proper procedure and go ahead and vote on that. So at this point in time, I would accept a motion to approve removing the interim term from Matt Fisher's current designation with the district.
Make a motion to approve removing the interim term from Matt Fisher's current designation with the district.
Second by Ms. Malden. Discussion. Seeing none, we may proceed to a vote. Motion passes. And once again, everyone has my apology that I operationally missed that last time. Okay. Number 7, reports. 7.1, Grand Island Public Schools Foundation Report. Ms. Juergens.
The foundation announced its gratitude for all the outstanding support for our second annual Harvest fundraiser. We're appreciative of all the support of GIPS staff, administration, boards, both GIPS and GIPS Foundation, as well as an overwhelming support of the community. Thank you to everyone for your stupendous generosity. The GIPS Foundation is partnering with Gear Up, the Greater Grand Island Community Foundation, to offer a scholarship fair for our students and parents at the Islander Annex building on Thursday, November 29th. There will be presentations on the local scholarship applications and booths for students and parents to visit. Several college partners have agreed to be there, as well as EduQuest and Gish Academy principals and counselors. Including in the event will be no-cost headshots for students. The Foundation's College Scholarship online application will be open December 1st and is accessible on our website, gipsfoundation.org. The Foundation will be accepting nominations for the 2024 Hall of Fame and 2024 Legendary Educator. Nominations can be submitted on gipsfoundation.org until November 1st, 2023, and that concludes the GIPS Foundation report.
Thank you, Ms. Juergens. Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 7.2, our student representative report. Addie Beltran. Ms. Beltran, you may have the mic.
Okay. For the October 12th report, for the athletics part, I have football had a close game with one of our biggest rivals, Kearney High. It was about 2 weeks ago, I believe. It was a really fun and intense game to watch. We were leading the game, for the first like 3 quarters, but we lost 7-10. It was still a pretty good game, to like not only for the guys to play, but also for the students to be in the stands. And the football boys have a game tomorrow against Omaha North, and it's a home game, and the theme will be cowboy/camo. Cross country had districts yesterday, Wednesday, at Pioneers Park in Lincoln, and it was a really tough course, but we still had some qualifiers for state. So sophomore Katie Johnson placed 12th, senior Annika Schlachter placed 14th, junior Ruben Caceres placed 7th, and junior Caden Bolts placed 10th. So those were the individual medalists, and the boys varsity team also qualified for state as a team with 74 points. They were projected second, but they ended up getting third. The girls team, we came up short for qualifying as a team. We were projected about third and fourth. We were kind of in a tie with Fremont, but we were about I think it was 12 points short. But it was still a really memorable experience, especially for us seniors, because it was our last meet. So, and really about the whole team is seniors, except for I want to say 5. So it's going to be really tough on Coach Megan next year. For volleyball, junior Tia Trout hit 1,000 kills at the September 21st home game against Fremont, and the girls won 3-0. And they were not only were they able to, they not only celebrated their win at the game, but they celebrated Tia's huge accomplishment as well. And senior Jalen Hansen has committed to play volleyball at Concordia University. Softball made it to their second day of districts, and with that, their season has ended, and that was last week. Girls golf had state earlier this week on Monday and Tuesday at Riverside, and Katie Loffing, a sophomore, made state. As for activities, the Gish Band performed at the Harvest Harmony Parade and received second place for Class A2, and senior Braddock Gernstein was the Gish student representative for the Gish Band at the parade. At the UNK Band Day, they also received some hardware, with placing second place for Class A overall and first in color guard. Seniors also had the opportunity to listen to poet Jacqueline Zehuantejo. Sorry, I don't know how to say his name, but that was last week, and it was all senior classes, so AP Lit went, regular English 4 went, and Wayne State went. So we had the opportunity to listen to the poet talk about the importance of education and scholarships, and it was really helpful in terms of college essays and really bettering those in order to get more money for scholarships. And a huge shout out to Gear Up for sponsoring that event. It was very helpful. We also had the annual college fair take place on Monday, October 9th in the West Gym, and students grade 10 through 12 had the opportunity to visit with over 30 regional colleges and universities. And the Islander Extravaganza, which is the 8th grade open house, will take place on Monday, November 6th in the Gish West Gym from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And all GIPS 8th graders and their family are encouraged to attend. And lastly, one I'm pretty excited about, the class officers and I have gotten feedback from the class of 2024 and have decided on our class themes. So our class song will be Good Old Days by Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. Our class motto is Never Back Down, Never What, Never Give Up. Our class colors are black and white. Our class flower is a rose. This one I'm pretty excited about too. Our class activity is a senior barbecue, which will most likely be held in spring. And then our prom theme will be Under the Stars. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, Ms. Beltran. Any questions? All right, very good job. Thank you very much. Item number 7.3, Superintendent Report. Mr. Fisher.
Okay, just a few bigger things going on here. This week we did have our parent-teacher conferences, and everything that I saw and heard would say that they were going very well. I did get over to a couple of the elementary buildings this morning and got to visit with teachers. It sounded like they had a really good turnout, and I think things have gone well as far as I know. Unless somebody out there can tell me otherwise, I think they've gone good. I know that Dr. Palmer and Dr. Kohler kind of set in on some of them in one of the elementary buildings, and I think they had a really good experience there. So overall, I think that's gone good. Wanted to mention Tuesday morning, Virgil and I met with the academy boards. It was actually the Health Sciences Academy's regular quarterly board meeting, but they had invited all of the various academy boards, and we gave them a little bit of a finance overview as far as the budget this year, and then really talked a little bit about where we were going to be financially down the road, and some of the things that we need to be aware of there, and again, that whole finance piece has been a pretty big focus for our district leadership team. We've started some fairly in-depth meetings talking about where we are and what it's gonna look like to address the need for increased efficiency and how we're gonna be able to lower our costs so that basically we'll have enough money to make everything work. So other thing, I mentioned the ESU meeting earlier as far as the legislative piece, but one of the other things, the main focus of that ESU meeting the other day was actually an introduction to the new Department of Education's leader for certification. And, certification has been a real struggle for a number of years. And I guess I'm pleased to report there also that I think the individual that they've got in charge now is going to be very responsive, and I think he's really working to try and figure out how can we eliminate barriers so that if a school district feels like they've got someone who can teach and the school district wants to put that person in a teaching role, hopefully they're going to figure out a way to get them certified. So like I said, just a real positive, and that is not what we've gotten from the Department of Education a lot of times. So kudos to them. I think they've got a good person in place there, and hopefully, and I know that Dr. Kohler and Brian Court could tell you some horror stories about trying to get certificates that I think are going to get a lot better. So other than that, we're plugging along. First quarter is just about done. So it's going right by. All right, that's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Fisher? Seeing none, we'll move on to executive session. Executive sessions for the purpose of negotiations, because it's in the best interest of the public to discuss this matter in closed session. We will convene into executive session for the purpose of discussing those negotiations. At this time, I would I would accept a motion to convene to executive session.
Make the motion to recommend the board to convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Official time is now 6:57. We will convene to executive session. point, I would entertain a motion for the board to reconvene from executive session.
I'd like to make a motion to reconvene from the executive session.
Second from Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none? You may proceed to vote. All right, motion passes. Okay, no need for item number 10. Notification of upcoming board meetings. They have the Board of Education retreat on Friday, October 20th, 2023. And then the regular Board of Education meeting will be Thursday, November 9th, 2023 at